looking at the #1 mama handler in the business. Now, you ready to tell me about this right now? James, you don't have to shout.
Everyone remembers Good Times, but few know what was really happening behind the scenes. Behind the laughs, the Dynamite catchphrases, and the family lessons, this 1970s classic was hiding some shocking secrets. Feuds between cast members, script battles that turned violent, and behind-the-scenes moments that would never make it on TV. Good Times broke barriers as the first sitcom to show real black family life in Chicago's housing projects. But off-camera, things got messy. From an 11-year-old star forced to hide her body to on-set fights that changed TV history, these are 15 weird and wild facts about Good Times you never knew. Fact 1. Family feud. Whether audiences first watched Good Times during its original 1970s run or caught reruns years later, everyone knew one thing. The Evans family didn't have it easy. They struggled to make ends meet, but their love for each other made them unforgettable. At the heart of the show was Esther Roll's Florida, the strong and wise matriarch, John Amos as James, the hard-working father doing everything he could to keep the family afloat. Bernadette Stannis as Thelma, the intelligent and determined daughter. Ralph Carter as Michael, the passionate young activist. And, of course, Jimmy Walker's J.J., the hilarious, wide-smiling dreamer whose catchphrase, Dynamite, became a national sensation. On screen, they were a family bound by love and laughter. Off-screen, though, things were far less harmonious. In later interviews, Jimmy Walker admitted that during the show's entire run, he barely spoke to John Amos or Esther Roll unless they were filming. "We were never friends," he said. "We never talked. If you asked me to call Esther, I wouldn't even have her number." As JJ's popularity skyrocketed, tensions behind the scenes grew worse. Roll and Amos became frustrated, believing the writers were turning the show into the JJ comedy hour, leaning into stereotypes they had worked hard to avoid. In a 1975 Ebony interview, Esther Roll didn't hold back, saying JJ's character had become more stupid as the series went on and calling him a terrible role model for young black audiences. Hearing that from his on-screen mother must have been devastating. Walker later described feeling isolated, keeping to himself while the rest of the cast seemed to take sides. When Esther Roll passed away in 1998, he was the only main cast member who didn't attend her funeral, a silent sign of how deep those wounds ran. The Evans family taught America about love, unity, and resilience. But behind the camera, that same bond just wasn't there. The family's warmth only came alive when someone called action. Fact 2. The age gaps that fooled everyone. Here's a fact that still surprises fans today. The Evans family's ages didn't make sense at all. On screen, James and Florida Evans came across as a middle-aged couple who'd weathered years of marriage, hard work, and parenting. But off-screen, the real-life age gap between the actors told a completely different story. Esther Roll, who played Florida, was actually 19 years older than John Amos, old enough to be his mother rather than his wife. And Amos himself was only 8 years older than Jimmy Walker, who played his teenage son JJ, and just 14 years older than Bernadette Stannis, who played Thelma. Still, none of that mattered once the cameras rolled. Amos brought such quiet strength and fatherly authority to the role that viewers never questioned it. His commanding presence and world-weary tone made him the perfect TV dad, even if, in reality, he was closer in age to his on-screen kids than his wife. It's proof that great acting and strong chemistry can make anything believable. The math might have been off, but the emotion was spot on, and that's what made Good Times feel so authentic. Fact 3. The shocking twist that changed Good Times forever. If you grew up watching Good Times, there's one scene you'll never forget. That gut-wrenching moment at the start of Season 4 when Florida learns James has died. It wasn't just heartbreaking television. It was the show's way of handling some very real drama behind the scenes. John Amos, who played the proud family patriarch James Evans, had been written out after clashing with the show's producers. He'd grown frustrated with how JJ's character was being written, evolving from a fun-loving big brother into what Amos saw as a damaging stereotype. And he wasn't shy about saying so. "I wasn't the most diplomatic guy in those days," Amos later admitted. "They got tired of having their lives threatened over jokes. So they said, I tell you what, why don't we kill him off and move on with our lives? Move on with our..." Esther Roll, who played Florida, agreed with him. She criticized JJ's portrayal in interviews, calling him a clown and a poor role model for young black viewers. By the end of Season 4, she'd had enough too, walking away from the show and leaving the Evans kids without either parent. The writers scrambled to fill the gap, sending Florida off to Arizona with a new husband and making Willona the new mother figure. But the heart of the show was gone. It just wasn't good times anymore. Roll eventually returned for the final season after producers promised to tone down JJ's over-the-top antics, but the spark that once made the show special never quite came back. And here's the surprising twist. Despite the firing, Norman Lear and John Amos eventually reconciled. A few years later, Lear invited Amos back to star in 704 Hauser, a reboot of All in the Family. So while James Evans may have met one of the most shocking deaths in TV history, his legacy and Amos's impact lived on long after that iconic damn, damn, damn moment. Fact 4. JJ's catchphrase almost didn't happen. Back in the day, it only took one word to make everyone laugh. Dynamite. That single explosive line defined J.J. Evans, but believe it or not, it almost never made it on air. Jimmy Walker thought the catchphrase was silly. Director John Rich thought it was pure genius, and Norman Lear, the creator of Good Times, couldn't stand it. But Rich wouldn't back down. He pushed and pushed until Lear finally agreed to let J.J. say it once per episode. That one decision changed television history. By the time Season 3 rolled around, the studio audience was chanting for it before JJ even stepped on set. Kids shouted it on playgrounds, parents dropped it at the office, and soon, Dynamite was everywhere, printed on T-shirts, featured in commercials, and even inspiring a magazine. Walker later revealed that he modeled JJ's personality after Ed Norton from The Honeymooners, goofy, upbeat, and larger than life. But it was that one unforgettable word that made him a household name. The Evans family might have struggled on screen, but JJ's unstoppable energy and that iconic catchphrase made Good Times pure dynamite for millions of viewers. Fact 5. Janet Jackson's sitcom roots. Before Janet Jackson became a global icon, collecting Grammys and redefining pop music, she was just a kid melting hearts on Good Times. She played Penny, the sweet little girl Willona adopted to save from an abusive home. It was surprisingly heavy material for a sitcom, and many fans still consider it some of the show's best writing. Janet brought innocence and depth to the role, balancing heartbreak with charm. And who could forget her adorable crush on JJ? Decades later, Janet got the perfect chance to revisit those early days, with a twist only she could pull off. In 2004, while hosting Saturday Night Live, she starred in a parody of Good Times that turned nostalgia into comedy gold. Janet stepped back into Penny's shoes, joined by Maya Rudolph playing both Thelma and Willona, Tracy Morgan as Bookman, and Kenan Thompson nailing Florida Evans's signature tone. The sketch blew every bit of Good Times drama out of proportion. Missed meals, endless bad luck, and constant chaos, transforming the Evans apartment into a hilarious disaster zone. It worked because, deep down, it was true. That family really did survive one crisis after another. The parody wasn't just funny, it was a tribute. It proved Good Times had become a cultural landmark, still recognizable and loved decades later. And the fact that Janet herself was willing to laugh at her past made it even better. Not every superstar would return to their humble beginnings with that kind of humor and heart, but Janet Jackson did, reminding everyone where her story began. Fact 6. The guest role that changed Gary Coleman's life forever. Before Gary Coleman became a household name on Different Strokes, he was quietly making his way through television, one small role at a time. Norman Lear first discovered him in a Harris Bank commercial and immediately saw something special. "That kid's a star," Lear reportedly said after watching the ad. And he was right. To test his instincts, Lear gave Coleman a few guest spots on his own shows. On Good Times, Coleman appeared twice as a character named Gary James, first in Season 5's That's Entertainment, Evan Style, and later in Season 6's Florida Gets a Job. Even with limited screen time, he stood out. He also popped up on The Jeffersons, another Lear production, playing Raymond, George's nephew. It wasn't a throwaway cameo. Coleman was front and center, already showing off the sharp wit and natural comic timing that would soon make him famous. The experiment paid off. Lear realized Coleman had something that couldn't be taught, pure charisma, and decided to build an entire show around him. That show became Different Strokes. Coleman didn't just star in it, he defined it. With his expressive face, quick humor, and unforgettable delivery, he became one of the biggest child stars of the late 1970s and 1980s, turning catchphrases into legend and cementing his place in pop culture history. Fact 7. The Fields family. Here's a connection that might surprise anyone who grew up watching The Facts of Life. Before Kim Fields became famous as the bubbly Tootie, both she and her real-life mother, Chip Fields, had already made their mark on Good Times. Chip originally auditioned for the role of Thelma Evans, but didn't land the part. Still, the producers saw something special in her and kept finding ways to bring her back. Her first appearance came in Season 2 as Rel, one of JJ's love interests in the two-part episode JJ's New Career. Then, just a season later, she returned in a completely different and unforgettable role: Penny's abusive mother. It became one of the darkest and most emotional storylines the sitcom ever tackled. The transformation was stunning, from playing JJ's date to portraying one of TV's most terrifying parental figures. And Kim Fields, just a child at the time, also appeared in Good Times as one of Penny's classmates. So yes, before she became America's favorite roller skating teen, Kim shared the screen and history with her real mom. It's one of those wild, wait what trivia moments that shows just how connected the world of 1970s and 1980s television really was. Fact 8. The theme song. Some TV theme songs are just catchy, others hit you right in the heart. Good Times somehow managed to do both. With its gospel-inspired rhythm and lyrics that were equal parts bleak and hopeful, the theme perfectly reflected the spirit of the Evans family, finding laughter and strength even when times were hard. Composed by Dave Grusin with lyrics by Alan and Marilyn Bergman, the song wasn't just an earworm, it was a message. It spoke to survival, community, and faith in the face of struggle. And those powerhouse vocals? That was Jim Gilstrap alongside Motown legend Blinky Williams. And together, they nailed it. But here's the fun part that's tripped fans up for decades. What are the actual lyrics? Even Chappelle's show poked fun at the confusion. For years, viewers swore they heard "hangin' in a chow line." According to the DVD set, official captions, and even Bern Nadette Stannis, Thelma herself, the real lyric is actually "hangin' in and jivin'." So no, it wasn't about standing in line for food. It was about pushing through life's challenges with soul and joy. That's exactly what Good Times was all about. Hope, humor, and heart, even when everything else fell apart. And since you're still here, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps keep these hidden TV gems alive for fans like you. Fact 9. Bookman was more than a building superintendent. Most fans remember Nathan Bookman as the bumbling building super, the guy the Evans family and Willona were always roasting for being lazy and useless. But behind the laughs, actor Johnny Brown was far more talented than his Buffalo Butt nickname ever suggested. Before Good Times, Brown had already built an impressive career on Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, the wildly popular sketch comedy show your parents probably watched before you were born. He was a true triple threat, a singer, dancer, and stand-up comic who shared stages with greats like Sammy Davis Jr. He even landed a recording deal and was famous for his flawless Louis Armstrong impression. Here's a twist that could have changed TV history. Johnny Brown was originally considered for the role of Lamont on Sanford and Son, but because he was still under contract with Laugh-In, he had to turn it down. Imagine Fred Sanford trading jokes with Johnny Brown instead of DeMond Wilson. The chemistry would have been completely different. Brown's career didn't stop with Good Times. He kept performing for decades, appearing in shows like Martin, The Wayans Bros, and The Jamie Foxx Show, and talent clearly ran in the family. His daughter, Sharon Brown, even appeared on Good Times herself as Fun Girl in a Season 5 episode. Johnny Brown passed away in 2022 at 84, leaving behind a legacy that stretched far beyond the walls of the Evans family apartment. He wasn't just the building super. He was a gifted entertainer who filled every role with humor, heart, and unmistakable soul. Fact 10. Michael Evans Alternatives. Coming in at number 7, here's a what-if that could have changed Good Times forever. Michael Evans, the sharp, socially conscious youngest son of the family, was almost played by someone completely different. Before Ralph Carter made the role iconic, producers had actually hired Haywood Nelson, the same actor who would later become famous as Dwayne on What's Happening. But everything changed when they discovered Ralph Carter, a talented young Broadway actor who had already earned praise for his work in A Raisin in the Sun. Carter's stage experience gave him a confidence and polish that stood out, especially in front of a live studio audience. The producers quickly made the switch, believing Carter could handle the show's emotional and political weight better than anyone else they'd seen. And here's a wild piece of trivia. Even a young Lawrence Fishburne was considered for the role. Yep, before he became Morpheus, he almost joined the Evans family, dropping truth bombs about racism and social justice in that tiny Chicago apartment. Once Carter came aboard, the writers leaned into Michael's character as the voice of reason, the kid who challenged authority and stood up for what was right. His lines about politics and equality hit hard, yet coming from a child, they felt more powerful and hopeful. Even cooler? Carter, Nelson, and Fishburne all knew each other growing up, and stayed friends long after their child actor days. 3 kids, 3 different paths, all connected by the same legendary show that started it all, Good Times. Fact 11. James Evans almost didn't exist. Here's a twist that could have completely rewritten television history. James Evans almost never existed on Good Times. If Esther Roll hadn't stood her ground, the show we know today might have looked entirely different. When Florida Evans first appeared on Maude, she was married to Henry, a firefighter played by John Amos. But when Norman Lear decided to spin her off into her own series, his original plan was bold and controversial. He wanted Good Times to center on a single mother raising her kids in the Chicago projects, believing it would make for grittier, more socially relevant television. Esther Roll wasn't having it. She refused to play another stereotype of a fatherless black family on TV. She pointed out that audiences already knew Florida was married, so dropping her husband without explanation would make no sense. And worse, it would send the wrong message. Rowley believed it was vital to show a strong, loving black father at the head of the household, something rarely seen on television at the time. She made her stance clear. No husband, no show. Thankfully, Lear listened. He brought back John Amos, renamed the character James, and together they helped create one of television's most iconic families. John Amos brought quiet strength and dignity to James Evans, a man who worked hard, loved fiercely, and fought to protect his family against impossible odds. His performance set a new standard for what a TV father could be. Amos passed away in 2024, but his legacy as James Evans lives on. A symbol of resilience, integrity, and the importance of strong black fatherhood in American television history. Fact 12. Willona's style was purely her own. If you watched Good Times, you know Willona Woods was hands down the most stylish woman in the Chicago projects. While everyone else was scraping by, Willona was serving looks, bold colors, sharp cuts, and enough flair to make every entrance unforgettable. Here's the secret behind that iconic style. Every outfit came straight from Jeanette Dubois' own closet. Instead of letting the costume department handle her wardrobe, Dubois brought her own clothes to set. She wanted Willona to reflect real confidence and individuality, not just a character on a page. That decision made all the difference. Willona's fashion felt genuine because it was genuine. It was Jeanette's spirit shining through. She once said her goal as Willona was to make it right, fast, and funny, and she carried that same energy into every wig, hat, and daring outfit she wore. The result was pure television magic. Willona didn't just talk about being a confident, independent woman. She embodied it. Jeanette Dubois passed away in 2020, but her legacy lives on in every sassy line and stylish strut her character ever delivered. She proved that sometimes the best costume isn't one created by designers. It's the one that comes straight from your own closet and from who you truly are. Fact 13. John Amos threatened writers. John Amos, who played the tough but loving James Evans on Good Times, was every bit as strong-willed off-screen as he was on it. His passion for authenticity often collided with the show's mostly white writing staff, and those clashes could get intense. Standing 6 feet tall with a commanding presence, Amos became deeply frustrated by storylines he felt misrepresented black family life. He believed the scripts were drifting into stereotypes rather than truth, and he wasn't afraid to say so, loudly. In interviews years later, Amos admitted that he wasn't exactly diplomatic in those moments. "I wasn't the most tactful guy back then," he confessed. "They got tired of having their lives threatened over jokes." Whenever disagreements came up in script meetings, Amos would challenge the writers head-on, sometimes literally. He'd tell them, "Let's go outside and settle this," turning creative disputes into potential fights. It shocked the writers, who were used to calm table reads, not physical showdowns. But behind the anger was conviction. Amos truly believed he understood the realities of the black experience better than the writers did. He would tell them flat out, "That just doesn't happen in our community. We don't think that way. We don't act that way. We don't let our children do that." The constant tension eventually became too much for the production. Norman Lear himself called Amos after the 3rd season to say his contract wouldn't be renewed. Looking back, Amos later said he wished he'd handled things differently, but his fight came from a place of love. He wanted Good Times to show the truth about black families, their strength, dignity, and humanity. And in that, he never backed down. Fact 14. Norman Lear originally hated the Dynamite catchphrase. The most iconic phrase from Good Times, "Dynamite," almost never made it to air. In fact, executive producer Norman Lear hated it so much that he reportedly had a physical reaction to hearing it. He actually threw up. The phrase would go on to define the 1970s and turn Jimmy Walker's J.J. Evans into a household name. But behind the scenes, it sparked one of the biggest creative battles in the show's history. Director John Rich was the one who came up with it. From the moment he heard Walker deliver the line, he was convinced it was pure gold, the kind of moment that could make the character unforgettable. He pushed hard to make Dynamite a staple, insisting Walker say it in every episode. But not everyone shared his enthusiasm. Walker himself wasn't sure it was a good idea. He worried that relying on one catchphrase would make his character feel one-dimensional, more like a cartoon than a real person. And Norman Lear? He despised it. Known for crafting smart, socially conscious comedies like All in the Family and Maude, Lear felt the phrase cheapened the show. He wanted Good Times to explore serious issues facing black families in America, poverty, racism, and perseverance, not rely on what he saw as a gimmicky punchline. The debate raged behind the scenes. Rich fought for it. Lear fought against it. And Walker was stuck in the middle, unsure whose instincts to trust. In the end, Rich's persistence won. Walker tried it once on camera, and the audience went wild. The phrase became an instant sensation, echoing through playgrounds, offices, and living rooms across America. Ironically, the very thing Norman Lear feared would ruin Good Times ended up becoming its most famous legacy. Dynamite didn't just make J.J. Evans a star. It became one of the most unforgettable catchphrases in television history. Fact 15. The show was filmed in Los Angeles, not Chicago. Good Times pulled off one of television's most convincing illusions, making millions of viewers believe they were watching life unfold inside Chicago's notorious Cabrini Green housing projects. In reality, not a single episode was filmed there. Every scene of the Evans family's struggles, laughter, and love took place thousands of miles away in Los Angeles. For the first 2 seasons, the show was shot at CBS Television City in Hollywood. After that, production moved to Metro Media Square on Sunset Boulevard, home to Norman Lear's production offices. The only real Chicago footage ever used appeared in the opening and closing credits, where exterior shots of Cabrini Green's high-rise towers and surrounding neighborhood set the tone. None of the cast ever set foot in the real place. Inside the studio, the production team built an entire world, from the Evans family's cramped apartment to the building's hallways and elevators. Every piece of worn furniture, every flickering light, was carefully designed to mimic the look and feel of 1970s public housing. This kind of geographical sleight of hand was common in television back then. Most New York or Chicago sitcoms were actually filmed under the California sun. But Good Times stood out because it felt real. That authenticity came from co-creator Eric Monti, who had grown up in Cabrini Green himself. His lived experience brought truth to the scripts, even if the actors were performing in air-conditioned Hollywood studios. It's an irony that still surprises fans today. A show celebrated for its gritty realism was created entirely in the heart of Hollywood. Yet thanks to its writing and performances, Good Times made viewers believe every moment of it. So there you have it. The behind-the-scenes truth about Good Times, the show that made America laugh, cry, and think all at once. From Hollywood illusions to explosive feuds, it proved that even a sitcom about struggle could change television forever. Which of these facts surprised you the most? The off-screen tension, the fake Cabrini Green set, or the battles that shaped the show's legacy? Let us know in the comments below. And if you love uncovering the untold stories behind classic TV, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because we've got plenty more hidden Hollywood secrets coming your way.